So I know it's early, but what do I think is going to be nominated for Best Screenplay at the Oscars next year? Hey guys, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. It's time for another entry in my extremely early Oscar prediction series. We're talking adapted and original screenplay today. What do I think is getting into the writing categories at the 98th Academy Awards? Let's start with Best Adapted Screenplay and The Life of Chuck. The Life of Chuck is finally opening. I saw this movie at the Toronto Film Festival last September, where it won the People's Choice Award. And I do think if Neon had put out this movie in December with the big campaign, like I know they had Anora, they had, their fair share of films, but The Life of Chuck opening like right after all of that buzz had been building for a few weeks, I think that might have helped this movie's awards chances. Because, I don't know, I feel like opening in June, like in limited release, I don't know how wide this movie is going. I'm not getting the sense that The Life of Chuck is going to be a big Oscar contender next year. I think it needs to come out later in the year. And especially with Neon having so many 2025 titles already, they have Sentimental Value, they've got the Palme d'Or winner, It Was Just an Accident. Like, they have their hands full right now already. And so even though I would love to see Mike Flanagan get his first Oscar nomination in Best Adapted Screenplay, that would be awesome. Right now, I don't think it's going to happen, even though there is still a small possibility, I would say, every title I'm talking about in this video. If the film has zero chance, I'm not going to talk about it here, but even though there is like a slight possibility for The Life of Chuck, I don't think it's going to happen at this moment. Speaking of the Cannes Film Festival, you also had Die My Love and Highest to Lowest, which are adaptations. Could either of those films that just played at Cannes get in at the Oscars in screenplay? I feel like Die My Love might have a better chance just because I feel like the reception was a little bit stronger for that movie, for Lynn Ramsey. But in terms of all the coverage I saw in that film, it seems to be more about the acting categories than necessarily like screenplay and stuff. So I don't think that's going to happen. Highest to Lowest, as I've talked about before, is opening later in August and then just dropping on Apple TV Plus on September 5th. So I'm not sure that's going to be an Oscar movie. Wicked for Good. Will Wicked for Good get into Best Adapted Screenplay? I know people were talking about the first Wicked movie getting into screenplay. It didn't happen. Now this is the second and final installment in this two-part story. I feel like if the movie comes on really strong, like overperforms, does better than the first movie, then a category it could get in this time, I think, is adapted screenplay. But I don't know, it's hard, right? It's a musical, like it's possible the second film isn't as strong as the first one, even if it does get into some big categories like acting again, picture and stuff. Like, I don't know, is it gonna get into screenplay? I don't see that happening at this moment, even though it's possible, I guess. And then two other films to talk about that might get into adapted screenplay. The first one is Bugonia, of course, the upcoming film by Yorgos Lanthimos. Poor Things did very well on Oscar nominations morning. Got into picture, director, the acting categories, and best adapted screenplay. Could the same thing happen for Bugonia? It's hard, right? Because we know very little about that movie right now. It might play as Poor Things. It might play more as Kinds of Kindness and not really be an Oscar movie. We don't really know because it's Lanthimos and Stone and Plemons again coming out later in the year. If that film does really well with critics and audiences, plays like Poor Things, then Bugonia could get into adapted screenplay. Like, it's definitely on my radar for this category. I'm not predicting it here quite yet. And Ballad of a Small Player, the upcoming film by Edward Berger, Conclave, got into adapted screenplay, so why not Ballad of a Small Player? It's got Colin Farrell and Tilda Swinton. It's probably going to premiere at like Venice, TIFF, that time period, I would say. If it's as good as Conclave, it gets into picture, the acting categories, then it's probably getting into adapted screenplay. I haven't heard anything about that movie yet. We don't really know. But kind of like Bugonia, I would say, it's definitely on my radar. But as of this moment, these are the 5 films I think are getting into adapted screenplay at the Oscars. I know it's extremely early. I'm getting a sense, like the lay of the land of this category. The films coming out later this year, I feel like could be huge contenders in adapted screenplay. So in alphabetical order, I'm starting with Deliver Me From Nowhere, the upcoming biopic about Bruce Springsteen. I've been talking about this movie a lot ever since my ridiculously early Oscar predictions video I made in March. If this film plays at all like a complete unknown, it's probably going to get into the Oscars in a variety of categories, just like that movie did. Picture, director, acting categories, and screenplay are on the table. This is an adaptation of a book, so Deliver Me From Nowhere would go into adapted. It all depends on how good or great or not so great, right, the movie is. If it's not as good as A Complete Unknown, if it does okay, it's not bad, but, maybe it can get into Best Actor, maybe even Picture, but it doesn't overperform on Oscar nominations morning, it doesn't get into every category we think, then I guess it could miss adapted screenplay, but I have it in right now. Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, I do think is getting into adapted screenplay. I feel like it could get into picture and maybe an acting category or two. They just released our first look at the film, Netflix. What a trailer. It looks spellbinding. From Del Toro doing Frankenstein, it's going to be worth your time. I was just unclear, would this be an awards movie? Maybe it won't be. Maybe it just gets a couple technical nominations and that's it. I mean, it is Frankenstein, so it could miss in these top categories. Maybe it doesn't get into picture, acting, screenplay. But I don't know, I feel like even if it underperforms, maybe it misses in a couple places, adapted screenplay definitely seems like a very high possibility with the movie coming out later in the year, in November. Everybody's going to be watching this film and talking about it, so I think Frankenstein has a very good shot of getting into adapted screenplay. Hamnet is next. I would say with almost 100% certainty, Hamnet is getting into adapted screenplay. Just based on the first stills I've seen of the actors on the set and the cast, you have Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal and Emily Watson. The director's Chloe Zhao. It's a fall release about the wife of William Shakespeare. It feels like even if Hamnet were to miss picture, it's probably getting into adapted screenplay. Outside of the film tanking and not being as good as we all think it's going to be, I think Hamnet is pretty much guaranteed getting into adapted screenplay. One Battle After Another. This one's interesting because I thought Paul Thomas Anderson's upcoming film with Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another, was original. If you go on IMDb, it just says director Paul Thomas Anderson, writer Paul Thomas Anderson. Usually, if a film is adapted, there's a second name there. There's based on the novel, based on the book or something. And then I did a little research. I saw a couple people were predicting this to get into adapted, and I was like, what? What's it based on? Apparently, it's loosely based on a novel called Vineland by Thomas Pynchon, who wrote Inherent Vice, which Anderson has also made a movie of course. Even though it's not a strict adaptation, page by page or anything of Vineland, I think because the Academy is so rigid in their rules, if it's just barely based on something, usually it goes into adapted screenplay, right? I think because I'm reading that One Battle After Another is loosely based on this 1990 novel, it's going in adapted. This is Paul Thomas Anderson. Even if the movie severely underperforms, it misses picture, it misses acting, even if that were to happen, which I don't think it is, I think it still gets into adapted screenplay, the same way Inherent Vice 2014 still got that one Oscar nomination for Anderson in adapted screenplay. And then finally, Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery, the upcoming third installment in the Knives Out franchise by Rian Johnson. I feel like as long as this movie is as good as the other two, it's going to get into the Oscars in at least adapted screenplay, maybe an acting category, as I'll talk about in my upcoming supporting actress extremely early predictions video. I feel like with Knives Out getting into original screenplay at the Oscars, And then Glass Onion, 3 years later, gets into adapted screenplay. Shouldn't they round out this trilogy of Oscar nominations, like, for the script of these movies? Like, shouldn't Wake Up Dead Man, which also just released its first footage, and it looks great, and it's coming out in November on Netflix, and what a cast. Like, it's definitely getting into best casting, I think, Wake Up Dead Man. It could maybe win that. Like, we shall see. I feel like because the first 2 installments in this franchise got into screenplay at the Oscars, Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery is getting in too. So I'm going to repeat my Oscar predictions for adapted screenplay at the end, but for now, let's move on to original screenplay, where we've got some heavy hitters, some big films coming out later this year that might get in. I also have 2 films I've already seen this year that I love, that I do think are getting into this category. Let's begin with The Rivals of Mziah King, which played at South by Southwest, got really good reviews. Matthew McConaughey is supposed to be really good in that. Audiences went nuts for that one, so it's definitely on my radar. I don't know right now, is that going to be a big awards player? Might it just like come out and do okay and, you know, it's kind of forgotten about come January, February? I don't know yet. I mean, maybe it gets into screenplay, maybe it does well at the Oscars, at least in a few categories, so I'm not predicting it right now, but I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. 3 films that did well at Cannes. Could any of these 3 get into original screenplay? I feel like one might, and I can't decide right now like which one it would be. So you have It Was Just an Accident, the Palme d'Or winner. So that's a question mark too. Is that going to get into picture, director, acting categories? Like, is that going to do well at the Oscars? Right now, I get the sense like maybe it could break into director if it does really well the next few months. It might just be a play for Best International Feature, and that's it. That might be its only nomination. I don't get the sense right now it's going to get into picture, director, screenplay. Like maybe right now, but we'll have to see how it does in the fall. The Secret Agent also did very well at Cannes. It won Best Director, Best Actor for Wagner Moura, and I just talked about Moura in my Best Actor predictions video. I think he's going to make it in. I think that could happen. Now, could The Secret Agent get into screenplay? That's also a maybe. I feel like if Moura gets into actor, then it's very well possible The Secret Agent can get into screenplay. Like, I toyed with including it in my predictions. I'm like, it's possible, Brian, The Secret Agent gets into picture, actor, maybe director, if it comes on really strong. And like, even if it only got into picture and actor, it's probably going to get into screenplay too. I'm really close on this one. I have it in like 6th place or 7th. Like, it's on my radar. It's possible. If it had won screenplay at Cannes, like I'd probably be predicting it. It didn't win screenplay there. So it might not be looked at as like one of the 5 best scripts of the year. It might be more of an acting showcase, a directing showcase. So I don't have it in right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if it makes it. And then Eleanor the Great, the feature film directorial debut by Scarlett Johansson starring June Squibb. Is that going to be a contender for original screenplay? Maybe. I mean, it got good reviews out of Cannes. I didn't hear like a ton of raves about it. I feel like June Squibb in Best Actress might be the big play for that. I don't think it's going to be a big contender for picture, director. It might get into actress for Squibb and then original screenplay. I could see that happening. If it comes on semi-strong in the fall, maybe. I don't have it in here right now, but it's a possibility for sure. And then 2 films opening later in the year that could definitely get into original screenplay based on how well they do at the box office with critics. The Smashing Machine and Marty Supreme. I feel like one of those 2 could easily get into original screenplay. I had Marty Supreme in my 5, and then I just took it out about 30 minutes ago to put in one other title that I'm not even like super confident about, but I've seen this movie. It's such a dynamic, original screenplay. I feel like it should get in if enough people watch it. And I was like, well, what would I take out here? Marty Supreme. I was like, even if that gets into picture, Best Actor for Timothée Chalamet, is Marty Supreme going to be looked at as a screenwriting feat? Is that going to get into original screenplay everywhere? It's likely, I would say. It's likely. I would have Marty Supreme in 6th place right now. And like, if that comes on even stronger than we think it's going to, like come December, I might be like, Brian, that was always getting into Best Original Screenplay. Brian, it's getting into picture and director and actor, and people love this movie. Of course it's getting into original screenplay. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm being kind of silly not including Marty Supreme right now, because I have predicted it already to get into picture and actor at least. So, I don't know. Like, we shall see. I feel like that has a better shot of getting into screenplay than The Smashing Machine, which I'm hearing a lot of mixed word about. Like, some people are saying that's not going to be an Oscar movie. Like, Dwayne Johnson is not getting in for that. Like, maybe he'll get in at SAG or something. He'll get like a lone SAG Best Actor nomination, but like, the film is not going to be a big awards player. I don't know. Like, based on the trailer I've seen, call me crazy, I guess. Call me crazy. I do think The Smashing Machine is going to get in at the Oscars. Maybe not in picture and director and screenplay. Maybe it's just an acting play and like maybe one technical category or something. Like, even if Dwayne Johnson makes it into Best Actor, it might not get into screenplay. I mean, it's a sports film at the end of the day. I don't think those kinds of films get into screenplay all that often, even though I did very much respond positively to the trailer. And I do think Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt are going to be in the conversation for acting Oscar nominations. I don't think The Smashing Machine gets into original screenplay. So just like I did and adapted, here are my 5 extremely early Oscar predictions for original screenplay in alphabetical order, starting with After the Hunt. I think After the Hunt is going to do well next award season, definitely better than Luca Guadagnino's last 2 films, Challengers and Queer. Like, with Julia Roberts in the lead role, with that amazing ensemble cast that also includes Andrew Garfield. The story sounds really interesting. I think the first footage has been shown somewhere. I read a little piece that people were responding very favorably to the initial footage being shown. And with the fall release, I'm assuming that's going to like Venice, TIFF and stuff. It sounds kind of like a writer's film. It sounds like a movie that's going to live or die on the performances and that screenplay. So if After the Hunt misses picture and director, like, you know, maybe it could miss original screenplay too. But right now, I have it in. I think After the Hunt is going to get into screenplay. Jay Kelly, I also have in. I think Jay Kelly is like very likely getting into original screenplay. If it's just like really, really good and not amazing, it can still get in there because it's Noah Baumbach. And he got in for Marriage Story a few years ago. He got in for The Squid and the Whale, 2005. Like, the Academy really adores the work of Noah Baumbach. And what's really cool about Jay Kelly and screenplay is that Noah Baumbach collaborated with Emily Mortimer on this script, the actress who's been a part of so many wonderful films going back decades. She's never received an Oscar nomination before. And so Emily Mortimer might get her first Oscar nod for the screenplay to Jay Kelly. I think it's going to happen. I think with that amazing ensemble cast, with Baumbach's track record, not every film he makes gets in at the Oscars, but I feel like Jay Kelly is probably getting into the acting categories, maybe picture, maybe not director, maybe it misses that, but it's probably getting into original screenplay. Sentimental value. Sentimental value might win, I think. Based on the response out of Cannes, Sentimental Value is going to do very well next award season. This is another film that Neon picked up and are going to be releasing later this year. And just like all of the people I follow on Twitter and Letterboxd, they went absolutely nuts for Sentimental Value. That film is right at the top of my most anticipated films of 2025. And I feel like it's almost 100% getting into Best Picture, at least 1 or 2 acting categories. Why would it miss Best Original Screenplay? So I am definitely definitely predicting Sentimental Value is getting an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. And the two final films to talk about in this video, I have already seen. These two 2025 releases are extraordinary. Most of you, I'm sure, have already seen the first one I'm talking about, Sinners, right? Sinners by Ryan Coogler, that is definitely getting into Best Original Screenplay. Even if it were to miss Director, even if it missed Picture, I do think Sinners is getting into Picture. I would be shocked at this point if it missed Picture. Like I just read a few hours ago, it's in like, its 7th weekend or something? And the drop-off is so minuscule at the box office weekend to weekend. It's still hanging in there, doing really well. Audiences in June are still showing up for Sinners, and I do think that's important when you talk about Sinners awards chances, that it keeps hanging on the way it is. Unlike any other movie that has opened so far this year. Nothing so far in 2025 is hanging on like Sinners. And so because it's so beloved, doing so well at the box office, it has to at least get into original screenplay, right? I mean, that would be crazy if on Oscar nominations morning, Sinners missed in picture and director and screenplay, and maybe gets like a couple technical nominations or something, and that's it. That would surprise me. I think even if Sinners doesn't do as well as we're predicting right now, it's getting into original screenplay. And Sorry Baby, the best film I saw at Sundance by Eva Victor, who wrote and directed it. She stars in it. It is such an original piece of screenwriting. Holy cow. It's unlike any movie I feel like I've seen before. And she just takes you on a wild ride in that. Scenes of humor, scenes of grief, scenes of great emotional power. You never know where the story is headed next. It did so well at Sundance. Everybody I talked to loved this movie with a passion. A24 picked it up. I think they're putting it out later in the summer. So it might be this year's Past Lives, where it doesn't do very well at Oscar nominations morning. Maybe it misses in acting and stuff. But it gets into picture, maybe, and it gets into original screenplay. This year's Past Lives should absolutely be Sorry Baby. Alright, so to wrap things up, let me give you a recap of my extremely early Oscar predictions in both adapted screenplay and original screenplay in alphabetical order. In adapted screenplay, I have Deliver Me From Nowhere, Frankenstein, Hamnet, One Battle After Another, and Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. In original screenplay, I have After the Hunt, Jay Kelly, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Sorry Baby. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below what are your extremely early Oscar predictions for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Original Screenplay, and I'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.